There are two reasons you should consider the Pixel 9 Pro as your next phone. But before we get to that, there's a lot to uncover here, so let's talk about that. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and on the surface, the Pixel 9 Pro looks like a really exciting upgrade with a fresh look thanks to those flat sides, the new camera pill instead of the visor, and Google really wants you to know that this thing was built with AI in mind. In fact, that's basically all they talk about in their marketing material for this phone, and I think they're betting on you to not notice some of the flaws that they haven't addressed with this new model. See, there is actually some new hardware here. We have a new 42 megapixel selfie camera with a wider field of view. Then there's the brighter display, the new ultrasonic in-display fingerprint scanner that is so much better than before, and of course the new chassis design and form factor. The new 9 Pro is almost the same size as last year's regular 8, but with those new flat sides, so that it does feel kind of different. And I think these flat sides are the best implemented that I've ever felt. I'm usually not a big fan of flat sides. I think that we moved away from them for a reason. They're not ergonomic. And I don't really like how Apple, Samsung and Nothing have done them over the past few years, but these are just so subtly curved that I think they work great. And especially in the glossy finish, where they're a little bit grippier than the matte sides. There's one thing I'm not super happy about, and it's that the glass back has almost a little lip to it that's really hard to illustrate, but you definitely feel it. It almost feels like a fitment issue. A nitpick for sure, but this phone is $1,000, so it better feel pretty perfect for that kind of money. At least it does have IP68 weatherproofing, so you can survive a day out in British weather, and even a dunk in the pool if you need to. The display is also new, and it's even brighter than last year, which I'm really happy to see. It's a really nice LTPO 120Hz OLED panel, which means it drops down to 1Hz at times to save battery life and can adjust all the way up to 120 at the top end. It's easy to view, easy to use thanks to that flat front element, and is probably the best hardware on this phone, to be quite honest. It's a gorgeous panel. It's also, for me, the perfect size, as it balances a nice big screen for multimedia like games and videos, but also isn't too big to easily be used one-handed, and it fits in most pockets just fine, even with this first-party case on it, which doesn't feel like too much and adds that protection that I feel it really needs. I will get to the new AI features later in the video, trust me, but right now we have to discuss the things that you don't see pushed in advertising, and it all starts with the performance hardware on here. This was the main thing I really wanted to test when this thing came out, because last year, whilst Google's Tensor G3 was a marked improvement over its predecessors, it still lagged behind Apple and Qualcomm. But here are some benchmark numbers from the new Tensor G4 available in the 9 Pro, and some other devices for a point of comparison. Up against the G3, the new Tensor chip does see a nice bump, but when you compare that to the latest and even last generation's Snapdragon chips, it's just clearly behind, particularly in multi-core CPU performance and in GPU performance, which is most going to be found, as you probably imagine, in games. This isn't just numbers for the sake of numbers. The Pixel 9 Pro straight up isn't as fast as last year's Galaxy S23 Ultra, which you can find refurbished for like half the price of the Pixel 9 Pro. This is the most noticeable in high-end 3D games like Genshin Impact, Warzone Mobile, and that kind of thing, where the chip's GPU performance just really isn't up to speed, which is something I could give a pass for the first, second, maybe even third versions of Tensor, but we're on G4 now, and it really should be at least getting up there. It's just not even close at the moment. Day to day, you will feel that this isn't as quick as some other phones, but generally you're going to feel the biggest delta in those games. So if you don't play too many games on your phones or do anything crazy graphic intensive, it might not be a problem for you, but it's still a problem for me. And get this, for $999, you're stuck with 128 gigabytes of storage, which, okay, some other models from other manufacturers give you that, so we can kind of give it a pass. But even if this is enough storage for you, the real kicker is this is still UFS 3.1 storage. Guys, come on. This is now 2 years in a row that we've paid flagship prices for phones without flagship level of storage speeds, and it's just a bit of a joke, really. And speaking of speeds, the charging is 27 watts, which is a correction on my launch video where I said it was 45 watts. You actually have to pay for the XL model to get the 45 watt charging for some reason. But yeah, in 2024, the $1,000 Pixel can charge a measly 27 watts over a cable. And of course you don't get the charger in the box either, like pretty much every other flagship these days. To be fair, battery life is pretty good and better than last year's regular 8 II. It's a 4700 mAh battery, which is pretty big for a phone that's this small, and it's an all-day phone, no dramas for pretty much anyone. If you spend multiple hours a day gaming on your phone, maybe you won't reach the full day, but other than that, scrolling heaps on social media, that kind of thing, not even a problem. I've been getting about a full day out of this thing with no dramas, auto brightness, maximum screen resolution, adaptive refresh rate, and a mix of LTE and Wi-Fi connectivity, though no Bluetooth accessories like my watch or my smart ring, those are on another phone. But given I typically end the day with 35-ish% left in the tank, it does have that headroom that if you did connect Bluetooth accessories, it shouldn't really die before the end of the day. And then there's the camera. Look, if you haven't seen my comparison between the 3A and the 9 Pro, go and check out the last video I put up on this channel. But to be fair, that was in ideal lighting conditions, so take it with a pinch of salt. But the hardware on offer here, while it may be a little bit different from last year's Pro, is not revolutionary by any definition of the word. Functionally, this is the same hardware, at least on the back, as last year's big Pro model. To be fair, that's not bad hardware, and having the 5x periscope zoom on the smaller phone is what I've been asking for ages, so thank you to Google for that. When it comes to picture quality, images are very solid, as you can imagine. Some of the best that you can get in a phone, but they aren't leaps and bounds ahead like Pixel photos used to be back in the day. Google's processing has matured really nicely over the past few years, and while there's still a nice amount of contrast to the photos with some really accurate colours and white balance in particular, images can be seen as a little flat if you're coming from sort of a OnePlus or a Samsung, maybe even an iPhone. And that said, I do quite like the more natural palette. It's one of the main things I attribute to Pixel photos these days. The main camera is a nice big sensor with a 25mm equivalent lens. It's the one you're going to want to use most of the time, and it's really good. The ultra-wide and telephoto cameras are also very good. Actually, Google has all but totally fixed the color shift between the three. So when you switch between lenses, it's almost perfect. And that is very impressive because it is very difficult to match these kinds of things. They are three different sensors. In trickier lighting conditions, this does deteriorate, but in good light, this continuity is fantastic. Fun fact, did you know that the sensor behind that 5x optical periscope is the same size as the main camera on the Pixel 2? Well, that should give you an indication of just how small that sensor is, which makes sense why it isn't necessarily the best 5x camera on the market, but it's still pretty good. Funnily enough, you can actually see the AI model introducing details that aren't actually there when you zoom really far in, say at 30x where this thing completely maxes out. It's really interesting, especially with text. It seems to add things in that, you can kind of make out in your brain, you can kind of fill in the details, but it filling in the details doesn't seem to do the same kind of thing. It's not necessarily a blur, and it's not necessarily a sharpening artifact, I don't think. It kind of looks like AI, which makes for images that obviously are a little bit faked. I don't know how to feel about this. Let me know in the comments, because it's definitely one that splits opinion. Did somebody order 8K video? No? Well, you're getting it anyway. This uses Video Boost to achieve the higher sharpness and detail and looks pretty decent, but as I say with all of these 8K modes on phones, just don't bother, stick to Ultra HD 4K 30 and 60 to get the best overall image quality and to ensure maximum compatibility. That said, I think the upscaling tech behind this stuff, like the ridiculous 20x video zoom, is actually really useful, and you get shockingly viewable video at such a crazy crop. I can't go without talking about the new selfie camera. It's a bit wider this year and has quadruple the resolution of last year's model, though it has been down to the sort of 10 megapixel mark for the final result. It's not as huge an upgrade as it kind of sounds on paper, but there is extra field of view, which I very much appreciate. This is a very nice little selfie camera. Unlike recent Pixel models, the 9 Pro doesn't come with a new suite of editing features. You still get Top Shot, AI Eraser, Magic Editor, that kind of thing. But there is a new mode called Ads Me, which essentially allows you to take group photos and then add yourself in after the fact. I'm sure this will be fantastic for those who actually leave the house and have friends, but I wouldn't know what that feels like. It's a cool feature though, and like other computational photography modes, doesn't sell the effect 100% of the time, but when it does work, it looks really good. And speaking of what this phone doesn't come with, a new version of Android. Yeah, if you buy a new Pixel today, it will come with Android 14. Sure, it'll get updates until 2031, and that genuinely is great, so thank you for that. The 9 Pro comes today with last year's OS, the one that shipped with the Pixel 8. Granted, it's a few revisions newer and has a few new features, of course, but nonetheless. Alright, let's get into the stuff that Google does want you to know about. Pixel Weather is a really nice redesign that looks clean and provides a good amount of data. The AI weather report is about as useful as a chocolate coffee cup though, because it's telling me information that I'm literally seeing right in front of me. Bit of a weird one, that. Pixel Screenshots, a really useful application allowing you to group different captures together, which makes saving receipts and the like really intuitive. This is a cool feature. Gemini Live is like having a full phone conversation with Gemini. You access it by holding the power button, tapping this little icon, and then you're right there. It's cool if you're into that kind of thing, but frankly, I wouldn't ask it for any kind of critical information because, like with pretty much every chatbot these days, it gets things wrong. It's a really cool concept, and I can see it being super useful if they can nail that accuracy, but for now it's practically a gimmick, since you can't rely on the information. Pixel Studio is a text-to-image AI generator. It's similar to Gemini Live in that it's really cool when it works, but in most cases it just spits out stuff that you either didn't ask it to or it just doesn't understand the assignment. It also can't do human faces at the moment, so there's that too. It doesn't know what a pixel looks like, which I find absolutely box office, and if this isn't a perfect example of the state of it, then I don't really know what is. These AI features are cool if you like AI, and if you don't, they're a nothing burger. Will these AI features come to older models? It remains to be seen, so I can't give you a concrete answer on that right now. Those two main reasons I said to consider the Pixel 9 Pro right at the start of the video. They are the new form factor with the all new Pro features in a body far smaller than the average flagship. This is a genuine reason to go for that one, as I think it's the last in its mold. It looks great, it feels great. This is, for me, maybe the best body, the best chassis that a phone has ever been. I really like it. The second, realistically, is that AI stuff I talked about. At present, you can only buy them in the Pixel 9 phones, and we don't know if or when it will be available in other models. For those who love AI, and I know a fair few, this is going to be a really cool phone for those features. I get that this has probably sounded like a bit of a negative review, and I want to say that it's not entirely the case. The Pixel 9 Pro is a good phone, with a killer design, some unique features that might or might not be worth it to you. The camera is very good, the battery life very solid, and the display is absolutely exceptional. But for me, there's just not enough from a performance or internal hardware perspective to make me pick one up over a discounted Pixel 8 or Pixel 8 Pro. If you really want the Pixel 9 Pro, you probably won't be disappointed. Just know what you're getting into. And yes folks, I still believe the OnePlus 12 is the better all-round phone. You didn't think I'd go an entire review without mentioning that, did you? Those Hasselblad colours are absolutely exceptional. It really does feel like Google used its AI advancements as smoke and mirrors to cover up the good, yet bang average flagship cameras, the straight up below par performance, and stuff like charging speeds and storage specs that, let's face it guys, should be better in a $1,000 smartphone in 2024. If this phone had top tier performance, maybe the Hasselblad colours, but that's a personal thing, and faster charging and storage, it's game over for everyone else. This, as it stands though, is not the case, so I'm gonna skip this one. What do you make of the new 9 Pro guys? Are you a fan? I want to love it. This chassis, this body, this form factor is incredible. The screen is also unreal. It's just, the performance just ain't it. And it kind of sets a bad precedent that this phone released with the same version of Android that came in the last model. I don't know. Let me know in the comments, and whilst you're down there, be sure to hit like if you enjoyed today's content and subscribe to never miss another upload. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.